Alrighty, we're just going to have a quick run through of how to plan your own personal training program in 3 easy steps. There's just part A, B, and C, and after which you should have your own personal training program, which will hopefully you'll do over the next 6 weeks, and hopefully you'll get better at your sport as a result of that. So what we need to do in preparation, you'll be given these instructions, which you see here on the right. You'll also need your 3 documents in your Google Drive folder. I've tidied it up a little bit. Most people's folder is called Unit 4, everyone is study at 1 SAC information. The 3 bits you'll need just to complete for this part. There is an example practice training program, which is a fully worked example that I've done to help you. There should be planning a training program, SAC data and revision. That is your training program and your activity analysis and your pre-fitness testing data, which we entered onto that and which we'll use for your SAC. And there's also just a spreadsheet. It's just a good overview of the different fitness components, what fitness training methods you can use to target those fitness components, and then making sure that you've got the training principles right so that you're actually training properly. So that's just a good overview to make sure that you're on the right track, and you can use that to check off your training program. Okay, so Section 1, the activity analysis. Section A, I've done a basketball example here like we did in class with Sean. What you'll need to do is the bits that are red are the bits that you'll need to fill in today in your own example. So this is the movement patterns data, which will come from our court that we've mapped out, and then how far they travelled in a minute. So you just need to make sure that you're putting in your data for the movement patterns, putting in your skill frequency data, putting in your heart rate intensity chart data. I've emailed the time motion thing to myself. Otherwise, you can just fill in a table for that one. You need to make sure that you're entering your stuff that you worked out, your work to rest ratio. Okay, and then moving on to our pre-fitness testing, which is section B. Pre-fitness testing, we just need to make sure we've got all the health-related fitness components. You can add your own skill-related fitness components as well if you wish. That's up to you, but the health-related ones have to be in there. Most people have done the majority of the tests and should have a result for that. And then what you'll need to do from there is for the aerobic capacity ones, the 20-meter shuttle run, if you did that one, you'll actually need to Google VO2 max calculator to work out your VO2 max. Everything else, the rating should be in your textbook. So you just need to check off where you were and put your norm rating down there. If you didn't get to complete one of the fitness tests, and look, no one's done the muscular strength, look, all I want you to do at this stage is, and if you missed any other ones, just estimate it as best you could, so we can so we can move on to making our training program. Obviously one of the aims of fitness testing is to identify your relative strengths and relative weaknesses. Now, why I say relative is that it could be different for everybody. For example, if I had all excellence and only one average, for example, if I had excellence for everything, okay, except one, and that was average, that would be a weakness, a relative weakness for me because it's below all the other ones. However, if all of my other results were poor, then actually that average would actually be a relative strength. So you've just got to take them all into consideration when you're deciding what your strengths and weaknesses are. It's personal for you. So you just need to say, okay, did a relative strength would sit above what your what you got most of your ratings were, and a relative strength might be anything below what most of them were. Okay, from that, from your pre-fitness testing data and from your activity analysis, you just need to choose one improvement goal, okay, so one health-related fitness component as your improvement goal and one health-related fitness component as your maintenance goal. So these are very important to get right because you need to be able to talk about these in your SAC in terms of, okay, why did you choose it as an improvement goal? You can, obviously, there's no right and wrong answer in terms of if you wanted to improve it because it's a strength, or improvement because it's a weakness, or maintain it because it's a strength, or maintain it because it's a weakness. So as long as you can explain, why you want to improve that, obviously relate it to your activity and analysis in terms of, is anaerobic capacity very important in my sport? So, for something like basketball, yes, it definitely would be. So, obviously, you're going to be looking at that improvement goal. So, basically, when you're choosing your goals, think about your pre-fitness testing data, strengths and weaknesses, and make sure that it's a fitness component that is linked closely to your sport, which you can get obviously from your activity analysis. Okay, so once we've done those things, there's other parts there, but that's just more revision stuff. We're just looking for the stuff in red. Is we need to start planning our fitness training program. Okay, so we need to make sure that we have what we call a microcycle. So it's just a week's worth of training, and how that looks in terms of your specificity, intensity, duration, and your frequency. So the first thing you need to make sure you get right is that your training program is set out to be based around your two goals. So your improvement goal and your maintenance goal. Okay, so for example, for this one, anaerobic capacity was the improvement goal. So let's just check off that I've done this correctly. Now, the first part you need to check, and this is where you can be using your overview, is okay, let's just check this bit first. So I've got two intermediate interval training programs which both fit in developing anaerobic capacity. I've got a power resistance training session which is also linked to aerobic capacity. That's fine. You can see it's all color coded there. And then also a fartlek training session can also be used to develop anaerobic capacity. So I've got at least four training sessions there that target anaerobic capacity. So one, my fitness training methods fit, and two, I've actually got my fitness training of frequency, making sure that we've got at least three sessions for my improvement goal and at least 2 sessions for my maintenance goal. So I can tick that off. I've got 4 sessions, so I've covered frequency. Okay, let's just check now the specificity, make sure that's right in terms of your work to rest ratio, your energy systems, major muscle groups and skills performed. Okay, so this is where we need to look at our training principles and our activities in terms of our making sure it's specific to the sport that we're trying to train for. So obviously anaerobic capacity, the work to rest ratio 1:2, so anaerobic glycolysis, work duration 30 seconds. Again, in the anaerobic glycolysis time frame, and the intensity is right as well. I've also I'm running, so if I'm training for basketball or footy, running, it would obviously be the major muscle groups that you needed. So I'm making sure that I've used the major muscle groups, I've used the right energy systems, so I've covered that specificity part of it. I've also got in my power resistance training session, for example, I've got things like squats and chest presses, which are similar to chest passes in basketball and jumping for a rebound in basketball. So again, there I've targeted the major muscle groups and the skills performed. So that's where I'm just checking off that I've got some specificity towards my the sport that I'm trying to train for, in terms of basketball for this one. I've got my intensity there for the sessions that I need it for. So continuous training, I've got from 70 to 85%, and my intermediate interval training is 85 to 95%. So again, anaerobic glycolysis. Okay, and then that's intensity covered. The duration, making sure that any sessions are over, that's 30 minutes there. So they're making sure that is suitable. So I've covered the duration part of the bits that need to be. My second goal was to maintain aerobic capacity. Okay, so I need to make sure that I'm doing the same thing again with those ones. I need to have 2 sessions at least. So I've got to do aerobic capacity, making sure my methods are right. So I've got a fartlek training session, okay, which can do aerobic capacity, and a continuous training session also, which can do aerobic capacity. So I've got 2 sessions there, which is perfect for maintaining aerobic capacity. Okay, so what you'd need to do now is if you complete something like football training or soccer training and netball training, which most of you do, or a lot of you do, you can still put those in. And like I said, most likely you just got to do it to the closest one, because we need to talk about those types of training, but they closely link to what footy training and netball trainings involve. Footy training generally will either give you intermediate interval training or long interval training, and you think about your training and what the work to rest ratio might be for that. Netball training is probably more short interval training for that part of it, because it's shorter distances, shorter times. Most people's game situation, so a footy game for most people would be closest to fartlek training. Netball, again, if you're a midfielder, probably fartlek training, but if you're a defender or a shooter, might be short interval again. So look, there's no real right and wrong in terms of that. Just got to link it as close as you can to the sport that if you're actually playing it, then that's what you'll need to do. But just try and link it to the best training method for that part. If you're unsure, look, I will catch up with you on Thursday to make sure that you understand that part of it. Alrighty, so once you've done all that, hopefully, okay, once you've checked off your training methods and your principles and your specificity, intensity, duration, and frequency, hopefully there you've got a nice, well-rounded training program, okay, that you will complete for the next 6 weeks, hopefully. If as best that you can, and that's all we need to do for this part. So yeah, please have that ready for me on Thursday, if you can. So we make sure you can get you started first week of the holidays. All right, thanks for that, guys, and good luck.